Okay, right now we are ready to start our very first attempt to write some programming in the STAN language and to make the final inference and estimates about the parameters of our linear model that we had. Okay, now before we just move on, the crucial part to just use the STAN is to define the data sets that it's going to be an input to our STAN programming. And then we just want to just fit our model probabilistically into the STAN, and I should say take the samples from, I should say, the posterior in the parameter space. The type of the data sets is a very constrained format of the data sets. For example, what do I mean? When we try to just create our model A, which is a non-Bayesian linear regression analysis, then we just use the GLM or LM methods. The data that we just used essentially was the exact data that we just uploaded. The whole data set was extracted. But essentially, the thing that we just want to do with the Bayesian, especially with the STAN, is going to be very different. What do I mean? It's going to be like that. I'm just going to create, I should say, an object, which I'm just going to call that data STAN. The data STAN, it means that this is going to be the data sets as an input that the model has to be fed with, but it's just going to be, I should say, narrowed and to be shaped and to be formed just for the STAN programming, which I'm going to do. I'm just going to store that object into the STAN data, but the crucial thing that it's going to be a single step, which is going to be the thing that we have to remember all the time if we plan to just write a programming into, let's say, the STAN. It's going to be, the data is going to be the format of a list. That's the thing which is also different from the previous course that we did. On the previous course, that if you just followed me there, we just use rstan arm. In the rstan arm, we didn't have that restriction that the data set, which is going to be the input to fit the model, is going to be as a list object. In the rstan arm, we didn't have that restriction. We could just use the woman itself. The whole data sets was crafted and extracted from, I should say, to be a representative of the data that we fit the model with. But now with the STAN, it has to be necessarily of the format of the list. And the thing which is going to be crucial here is that we have normally 3 objects to put there. For example, within the woman data sets, which is going to be very simple, we have 3 arguments to just put that inside the list. The first one is going to represent the X. I mean the covariate, the features, or the variables, or the predictors of the model, which is going to be the X. Rx, what is Rx? Is going to be the woman's weight. I stored the woman's weight when I extracted from the woman's into an object which was called X. I can just put X equals to X. You could have created something like that. Instead of the X, you can create the woman $ weight. You store the whole argument inside an object, and you could call it simply weight. You can also write it here. In that case, you can write X equals to weight. It doesn't matter. I just put the X because it was symbolically, it's very convenient when you look at it that way. The other object which I need to just put inside the list which I have for my data STAN, it's going to represent my Y. What is Y? Y essentially is the response variable, the thing that we just want to predict. And how to do that? I know that, okay, the thing which I want to predict in the model is going to be the woman's height. Previously, I extracted the woman's height and stored that into an object which I called it Y. Then I just come here, and for the Y, which is going to be my response variable, I'm just going to simply call it Y. Okay, now, at this stage, we created the X as an X, the Y as a Y, and also you can call it Y as, for example, you can create a model, extract the height as a height, and you can call Y equals to height. It doesn't matter. We need also the third argument, which is going to be a crucial argument inside the model that we have. For the n represents the number of the observation in our data sets. I can create n like that. I come here when I define these variables. If I just want to look at the number of the, I should say, the observation in my sample, in the women's data set, it's clear for me how many observations do I have. I know that I have 15 women, 15 American women in my population. Then if I look at each woman as an observation, I know that the number of the observation in my method is gonna be 15. But I cannot just put here in my model as 15. I cannot do that, because you are gonna see the reason why in couple of next lectures. Then I just come here, sorry, parametrically, I'm just gonna find the number of the observation. In order to find the number of the observation the number of the woman, it's going to be very easy. Look at this one. If I click on the data sets, the number of the observation, as you can see, because at each row, I have one woman standing. Then if I know the number of the rows in my data sets, you can see this is 15, it can be conferred that the number of the rows also refers to the number of the, I should say, the observation. Then I take a look at the functions at the n row of my object woman, which extracts the number of the observation, and I'm just going to store that into an object, and I call that n. N represents the number of the observation. And now I come here, I scroll down, and for the n, the argument for the r, which is crucial for my method, I'm just going to press, I should say, n as a number of the observation equals to n. You could essentially put the n row of the woman at that point, but for the consistency, because I just wanted to define everything here, x, y, and n, I decided to just put the n, define n here like that, and when it comes to specify the n in the list for the data stand, I just put the n. As I said, you can just put n row equal to n. Okay. I'm just going to execute the line by pressing Ctrl Enter, and I see an object as data stand is created there, which is a list of 3 objects. Okay. Now I created the data sets for the stand, which is a crucial part. One of the most important part of programming with the stand is how to define your data sets for the stand. Okay, now that we feel comfortable with that, we can just go ahead to the stand to create that one. But before do that, I'm just gonna finish the lectures right now, that we can just go for a quick break, take a deep breath, stretch some muscles, then we come back. At the next tutorial, we just go to the stand itself to write our program. See you there then.